Apple Podcasts is a popular place for iOS device listeners to discover and subscribe to podcasts. For most podcasters, one of the most important early steps is to submit your podcast RSS feed to Apple Podcasts. Here's how to submit your podcast to Apple Podcasts. Before we begin, you'll need to publish at least one episode on Podbean with an iTunes-supported file format. If you have not yet published a podcast, check out our how-to video. iTunes currently supports MP3, M4A, MOV, MP4, M4V, and PDF file types for podcast episodes. Log into your Podbean account. On the top right corner, click Podcast Dashboard. On the left-hand column, click Distribution, Podcast Apps. Click the plus sign to the right of Apple Podcasts. Review your podcast info for the required fields in Step 1 and ensure that you currently have one podcast episode published before continuing. Under Step 3, click on the Submit to Apple Podcast button. This brings you to podcastconnect.apple.com. Log in using your Apple ID and password. If you don't have an Apple ID, you'll have to make one before proceeding. Per Apple, verify that your Apple ID is fully activated by adding a valid payment method and agreeing to Apple Media Service terms and conditions. Click the plus sign to the right of the podcast's header and select New Show. Select Add Show with an RSS feed. Type in your RSS feed exactly how it's written on Podbean. You can find your podcast's RSS feed in your Podbean dashboard by navigating to Settings, Feed, and copying the RSS feed on the right side of the screen. Under RSS Feed Access, click Make My Feed Publicly Available. Use the User Access option to control who can view this show in your Apple Podcast Connect account. Click the Add button. Review your show details on the Show Information page to ensure everything looks correct. Provide your contact information for the show so that Apple can reach out to you in the event that there's an issue. On the left-hand column, click Availability and Rights. Under Availability, you can select what countries and regions you'd like your podcast to appear in. Under Content Rights, confirm that your show has the rights to any third-party content it may contain. As stated on the screen, shows that contain third-party content must have all the necessary rights to that content or be otherwise permitted to use it under the laws of each country or region in which they're available. Under Show Release, you can select whether your show will be released as soon as it's published, or you can select a date and time for it to release on Apple Podcasts. When you're done, click Save. Click Submit for review. Your podcast has now been submitted to Apple Podcasts. Your podcast should now be searchable on Apple Podcasts once your submission is complete. However, we always recommend 24 to 48 hours for your podcast to be indexed in any third-party directory. Your RSS feed will be validated before it's sent to Apple. If there's an issue, a warning message will appear and must be resolved before you can submit your show.